Hey, today we're looking at Matthew chapter 18. It's really mostly teaching from Jesus, and there's something in this chapter, in chapter 18, that Jesus says to us, and it is some of the most important words that are just so ignored. And if these words were actually listened to and obeyed, the world would be a better place, and the church would be a better place. And for so many people out there, maybe even for you, you've been in a church before, or you've been hurt by other Christians, you've been hurt by the church, there's been some conflict, some sort of disagreement, some sort of pain that was caused, and if it's not handled the right way, there's a good chance the church breaks up, there's a good chance someone leaves, there's a good chance there's all kinds of pain and just division, and it's because we ignore what Jesus says here in Matthew 18. The first thing he says in verses 15 through 20 is how to go about confronting someone when they sin against you, when they do something that is hurtful towards you. And he says to them, you are responsible, like you as the hurt person, as the one who's been sinned against, you're responsible to go to that person in private and talk to them about it. And this alone, for so many of us, and for me included, is a revolutionary idea. It's not talk about them behind their back. It's not first gather a group of people who are going to agree with me and my hurt, and then go to the person. It's not talk to someone else about it. It is go to that person directly and talk to them. If these words were actually listened to, the church and the world would be a different place, right? Then Jesus continues, and if they don't listen, then bring along someone else, or maybe two other people, and talk. And these are not just any people, but these are the right people. These are people who are part of the church, who are, remember, we are brothers and sisters, right? We are brothers and sisters in Christ, so bring along two other brothers or sisters, and then talk. And that's never listened to either, is it? And if that doesn't work, then bring along, other people from the church, right? And if none of that works, then let them go. Like treat them basically as an outsider, because by not honestly confronting and by honestly not dealing with like sin and hurt and conflict between two people, you're basically taking yourself out of the church. And it says treat them like a Gentile or a tax collector, which again, the church has a mission to reach out to Gentiles and tax collectors, right? So what he's saying here is treat them as someone who needs to be like reached out to, and so that they can be brought back in, okay? And then in verse 21 and 22, right? So that's like one thing. If someone sins against you, what do? You go to them, you talk to them, you bring more people, right? And then in 21 and 22, Peter asks, if a member sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times? And Jesus says, not 7, but 77. And by that he means like, forgive forever. And so it's interesting, you have these two different responsibilities that we as brothers and sisters in Christ, as part of the church, we have towards one another. One is to handle conflict and hurt and sin against one another, to handle that in the way that Jesus says, which is, with this seriousness, with respect, with honesty, right? And we owe one another unlimited forgiveness. So we have a duty to each other to not only confront sin in the right way, but we have the same duty to forgive sin. And that's what we are called to as brothers and sisters in Christ. If these words from Jesus were listened to, the church would be a different place and the world would be a different place. There would be so many less people walking around out there who are no longer a part of the church because of the hurt or the pain or the conflict that drove them away. And so for us as Jesus followers, let's listen to Jesus here and learn how to do conflict and confrontation and reconciliation and forgiveness in the way that Jesus very clearly tells us here in Matthew chapter 18.